Hi, everybody. It's Thursday, December 4th, 2025, and our dear friend, our brother, Andrei Martyanov, is here with us from Seattle. Welcome, Andrei.
My pleasure, Nima.
Please subscribe and hit like button, helping us reaching more people. The algorithm really works this way. Andrei, let me start with it seems that somehow you look at the situation in the United States and in
hmm
Europe, they're in some sort of panic. You know,
hmm
they feel that something happening between Russia and the United States. And here is what John Bolton said about the new attitude on the part of the United States.
Write a piece for the Telegraph talking about Trump and your view selling out Ukraine, but the headline there says, but the tide may be turning. So perhaps pick up on that part of it if you can.
Well, I think by this point, enough Republicans in Congress have seen that there really isn't any hope that Trump is going to look out for American strategic interest here. He's looking for a Nobel Peace Prize. It's just as straightforward as that. He doesn't care what the substantive terms of the agreement are, so long as he can declare success.
Yeah. Andre, he's talking about the U.S. strategic interest. What is that? In my opinion, if they are looking, they want some sort of security, some sort of strategic, mindset. They have to have a better relationship with both Russia and China, and a new, sort of attitude toward other countries, not just. But it doesn't seem that is in the mind of these people who are in Washington. I'm not talking about, because these people who are in power in the United States are mostly Republicans. And John Bolton is talking to Republicans to just make a barrier, make some sort of obstacles for Donald Trump. What is going on in the United States, in your opinion?
Well, John Bolton would know the first thing about anything related to the national interest of the United States. He's a coward, he's a corrupt politician, he's a shyster from the swamp, and he's psychopath. Not psychopath. Psychopaths sometimes do not know fear. He is a sociopath, classic American politician. So whatever he says is absolutely means nothing. And yeah, Trump wants dearly his Nobel Prize, Nobel Peace Prize, which is a worthless piece of paper. They award this garbage to anybody who does whatever the bunch of morons they consider, under the pressure from the participants in the Nobel Prize Committee, and obviously the countries which press on them, United States, Europeans, and basically structures like this. So in this case, whatever Bolton says is useless anyhow. The guy is utterly incompetent in any respect. He knows only how, I don't know, if it's true or not, he'll go to the orgies of swingers and things of this nature. And so, in this case, judging anything which emanates from Washington, D.C. or Brussels, for that matter, is absolutely useless. It's not about tide turning. It's about the fact that there are still some people who understand, and not just looking at the maps. They recognize that they are absolutely impotent militarily. United States has no resources to do anything about whatever is happening, in what is now the former Ukraine. And so, plus, of course, this corruption scandal, which kind of, came in really handy, as of lately. So what can they do? Nothing. I mean, United States cannot fight the real war. It cannot fight the modern combined arms operations. The only weapon it has in itself as the superpower, in a sense, is the remnants, fast becoming obsolete, with the exception of the new nuclear-powered submarines, is the old Navy and old nuclear deterrent. That's it. Other than that, we saw everything what have happened. There's no need to repeat it again and then again. John Bolton won't understand the first thing about the balance of power. Neither will most of the people in the Knesset 2.0. That's what the U.S. Congress is. And so in this case, you cannot explain it to them. They only, react to the impetuses and, all kinds of the stimuli from the outside, like fear, Well, primarily fear and greed. That's two most, important things which move them. So there are very few people there who have any credibility, who have any understanding of what is going on. And GOP, the Republican Party, is long ago is not a Republican Party; it's the Israeli party, and so. It's a uniparty, essentially, with the different, approaches to how they want to basically completely finish off the United States and make life of the American people unbearable. And that's what it is. So each time recycling these morons like Bolton, all those American generals like Keane or Kellogg or whatever, I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. These people they are gone. They are basically walking dead man walking, because everything they know about the world outside is absolutely garbage. It's trash. They don't understand anything about the real statesmanship, the craft of statesmanship. But what can I say? I mean, that's the people who, for some reason, are considered to be experts because they have been rubbing shoulders. And, like Bolton, he was sabotaging Trump's administration in the first go, which tells you everything you need to know about Trump. So what can I say? It's complete chaos.
He said that Trump is selling out Ukraine. What is Ukraine today? They have destroyed Ukraine by this war.
Yeah.
They started this war. They continued this war.
Yeah.
And they are insisting on the continuation of the conflict as though Ukraine is winning or somehow in their
They're war criminals. John Bolton is a war criminal, as most of people who have been promoting this idea. For example, most of Biden administration, they are war criminals, including some people who would easily pass for the crimes against humanity. These morons, these are nincompoops who have no clue about warfare. They are badly educated, highly uncultured. Can you imagine like Blinken or Sullivan? I mean, these are the products of the degree mills from the Ivy League. That means what? They have been there just spending their times learning some things which are absolutely inapplicable in the for statesmanship anyhow. And so they killed around probably now more than 2 million of the personnel of the armed forces of Ukraine. They essentially, as you correctly stated, they destroyed Ukraine by means of the suicide by cop, by throwing it at Russia, because those people, as I already stated many times, I will repeat again, they have no clue about real economy, about real warfare. They're just incompetent, period. And that spreads across the board, from the CIA to Pentagon to those people in Congress who still think that they know how the world works. They don't. They are utterly incompetent and uncultured and uneducated people. This is what happened, as I blame this on the utter corruption of the American political system at this stage, and of course the collapse of the American public education, be them in school, where we have now people complaining that, I mean, you have people in universities who cannot do middle school math. And I mean, what do you expect from those people? At least, Wolfowitz had the bachelor's degree in mathematics. Not that it helped him much. The guy is also utter moron, but then again, they don't teach how to be a statesman. America does not produce statesmen, period. It produces politicians who know how to enrich themselves and how to stay elected, period. These are not people who can run the country. So,
Andrei, how did you find the meeting between Vladimir Putin together with Ushakov and Kirill Dmitriev? On the other hand, we had, Witkoff and Kushner, 5 hours talking to each other. I hope that he didn't need to teach Kushner a history lesson.
Yeah, I mean, he was there not to negotiate anything per se. Again, keep in mind, United States is co-belligerent. Trump had his chance within, let's say, first 2-3 months, where he could have delivered on his promise to stop the war, and get his Nobel Peace Prize. He didn't. It's his war. It's too late now, but the only thing they can get as the result of any kind of negotiations is the off-ramp for the United States, because it's the courtesy between the superpowers. One superpower doesn't want to completely destroy the other superpower in any violent way. And obviously, Russia wouldn't mind United States staying the one of other 3-4 great powers, because, it's kind of convenient to have somebody also who is a little bit on the competition with you. But the problem is that Kushner there is not for, unlike Witkov, who is basically messenger, and his task is to listen to position of Vladimir Putin, that means Russia, and of course bring this message back to Trump. But Kushner being, some people say he is the downright, Mossad asset, but it is obvious that it is all tied to Israel. Kushner there is probably observed and maybe kind of get some input, because obviously there are, which is known fact, the Jewish globalist capital, they know that it's over. So Europe, which for 500 years has been the safe haven for the capital, not only Jewish, but Jewish also, very much like Rothschilds and all those old, the financial families who for some reason people think that they are all powerful, which they are not. They know that Europe is done. They also know that the United States is bankrupt and is absolutely unstable politically for now. So they need to find their place, safe haven, to, basically park this capital. And obviously, Vladimir Putin is not going to talk to Rothschild. He's not going to talk to all other bankers' families, because, they're totally different level of the power. And, so what you have this boy, who is Zionist, who is obviously tied to Israel, and who is obviously tied to all those globalist people. And so that is why actually partially could be the case when Macron was trying to call separately Vladimir Putin. And so that is the communications right now, because obviously we have the situation. There are only two places they can park this capital: China. But then again, China is it's so gigantic that it makes all those bankers' families look puny. And so they don't need money. China is floating in cash. I mean, they just, the same goes for Russia, by the way. But Russia, first, keep in mind, I wrote about it yesterday in my blog. I will repeat it again. And Russia emerged victorious against the combined West. So what do you think? Of course, capital loves what? Tranquility, calm, silence, just making money and things of this nature. There is your candidate. More than 1/3 of world resources victorious in the militarily and economically against the combined West. Where do you want to park your capital? Make your own conclusion. And then you have this gigantic economic bloc emerging, of course, with BRICS. And we just saw how isolated Russia is in India. So there you go. Can you imagine that? And these are real money. These are not, not that those countries, Russia, China, India, obviously they have their own problems, all specific problems. But the point is, you have the economies of scale there. Many people do not understand that Russian economy is larger in real terms than Germany's and France's economies combined. Still larger. And in terms of military industrial potential, it's larger than combined West together with the United States. So that tells you something, isn't it? So that's the leverage. And so they are going there and discuss not only those things which are related to providing the off-ramp. This is the only thing which United States can get now from Russia. And Russians have been offering off-ramp to Trump administration practically from the day one. So, and if Trump doesn't take it, well, I'm sorry, it's his war, so he can do whatever he wants. Russians don't care. They will continue to do what they need to do. And that has been stated very clearly.
I think the pictures that we've seen from India, upon the arrival of Vladimir Putin in India, the Prime Minister of India has decided to welcome him personally going there. Here is the footage, Andrei. I think these pictures are not lying to us. How deep the relationship between India and Russia is today, and how important Russia is for India today. And many people fail to understand, how these countries or somehow their sovereignty, their prosperous life is connected
Yeah,
together. They're totally connected. They understand the important role of each other,
yeah, yeah.
but the
They
West
this
fails to understand that.
No, they cannot understand. Average Ivy League product from those degree meals in economics or history or whatever they path. You cannot explain this to people like Edward Luttwak. He doesn't have that. They all operate on those abstract figures, abstract fake indices like GDP, whatever the GDP is. Well, in Netherlands, for example, counts GDP, prostitution, and trade in narcotics. So they don't understand this. They don't have culture. They don't have the toolkit, so to speak, or organ which allows them to judge properly the geopolitical things, which are based on the military-industrial balance, the power balance. They don't teach power balance even the U.S. military academies. Including those, they don't understand what it is. They believe all those, they watched a lot of Hollywood, obviously, Top Gun Maverick, they believe that you can fly whatever and kill whatever, and doesn't work like this. And so as a result, they are completely lost. They lived out in the echo chamber. Echo chamber is crumbling right now. And we have the issues which I looked around, and I look around it, in media and reactions, especially from professionals. We have some people who are downright getting off rails. They are becoming mentally sick because they cannot accept the fact, or because they drank this Kool-Aid, they did this propaganda, they just accepted this propaganda as truth, and then suddenly reality is such, listen, by all metrics, by Pentagon and, all those people from Chatham House and MI6, all those nincompoops, and, basically professional terrorists primarily. The CIA doesn't do strategic forecast. They don't know how to do it. Neither does Brussels. So as a result, by 2023, in their opinion, Putin's regime should have collapsed. Russians would have welcomed, all those liberal nut jobs, which they actually curate in the West. People who they are not even popular among this tiny liberal opposition in Russia, but they believe that. When you have your history of Soviet Union and Russia written by Solzhenitsyn and by German generals, this is what you get. Those people never cared about understanding anything because they are arrogant, they are very uncultured, as already stated, and you look at the last serious diplomats in the United States, went away with the generation of esteemed Jack Matlock, and again, the last great Secretary of the State was James Baker. After that, you just look at this, they're primarily clowns, not all of them. But and you look at them, I don't know what kind of things they provided here, the feedback. I can tell you, basically, they were meeting all those fringe elements like Garry Kasparov and all those nut jobs from, so-called pro-Western liberal opposition. The only reason they were listening to them, because obviously they were hearing what they wanted to hear. How great the United States is. This is the best thing ever. And then, Russia is about to collapse, and it was collapsing ever since essentially Vladimir Putin came to power. But many people didn't understand what actually is happening behind the scene, behind the stage. They don't have toolkit. They don't know anything. And they do not understand that the real world operates on a completely different premises than what is being taught to them in all those strategy courses and, basically fairy tales, which they presented as the subject. And so as a result, that's the end. That's because obviously Russia just demonstrated to the world, treading very carefully, as not to basically make this rat, which is cornered, to bite back. Because, and especially with the United States being essentially the nuclear superpower, who knows? There were many nut jobs in Biden administration who believed it because they are lawyers, because they are political scientists. They are people who absolutely detached with any realities of the modern weapon systems and how they operate. They believe that probably they could even start the nuclear war and that they will survive. Obviously, these are the type of the cretins which United States and combined West, Europe is altogether, is the basket case mentally. And so that's who they produce. They do not understand. And now, when Suddenly 2023 passes, then 2024, and where is Russia now? Well, Russia is where it wants to be, exactly where it wants to be. And as already stated, strategy, they don't know what strategy is.
Andrei, in the meeting, we didn't have Lavrov participating. He was in China, if I'm not mistaken. And how do you see? We have right now Macron in China talking with Xi. He's trying to somehow. Uh, he says that China may play a role to balance the situation in Ukraine. But what it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's the second time he's going to China asking this.
And he will go the third.
We
And
had
then-
Scholz, we had Olaf Scholz before.
yeah, I mean, they don't understand. Xi is sitting on the largest economy in the history of humanity. It is monstrous economy that China has, and China has again. They are sinking in cash. Okay, so he hasn't this. You know what? I don't know, some kind of insect. You know, from France, which and. They don't understand the scales, those people. The only thing that France has is the nuclear deterrent, and they have to actually erect and pray to the monuments of Charles de Gaulle, the last great French man. The rest of it are clowns, basically. And so he can go there and talk. It's like it's a flea talking to a dog, So it's just those people have to understand their place in the world. They are nobodies. And many people begin to accept this fact that, Europe is nobody. I mean, they don't have resources. They don't have any kind of the industrial potential which can take them to the next stage of including real energy transition, not this garbage of the green agenda, which they killed their own industries, but the real energy transition into the portable nuclear power stations and new types of the energy and all kinds of things of this nature, the space travel to the planets of the solar system. They are not even there. They are not even in the same galaxy. That's the whole thing. What can they do now? They have a little bit of the shipbuilding. The French have it. They do have this consortium, which is Airbus. But the rest of it, they cannot produce weapon which is required for the 2025 warfare, and they will not be able to produce it. And so, what? The only thing they have but probably you heard about it. There is such a mental illness called the Paris syndrome. It's prevalent in Asian tourists. They dream about Paris like this, city of lights and city of love. And then they come from Japan or China for the first time, and they see Paris and like, what the hell, man? Dirty, stinking with urine, narrow streets, the street crime, and they're shocked. And many people require, obviously, they're very sensitive souls. They require the, help of psychologists, So this is what Europe is. Yeah. So what can I say? That's their fate, and they have to resign to it because they can do nothing to change it, because there's nothing they can do about it, because their run have been basically stopped by Russia. And if not for the United States, which gave them their lease on life for additional 80 years, when United States, with their allies, Western allies, stepped into landed in Normandy in 1944. So they gave it, this pretense of democracy and all that things, and they blew it. So what can I say? It's over. So,
if I put myself in the shoes of Chinese, I would say, you have a superpower in your continent. You don't know how to, talk with them. How can you imagine to come here and asking? It's something so basic when it comes to the relationship between. If you are a sovereign country, you have to have some sort of strategy, some sort of foreign policy to talk. They have lost this sense of talking to each other.
Yeah, they are detached from the reality, and those who try to get back into it, they don't have a toolkit. Macron is the errand boy of, those banking families, globalists, the World Economic Forum. So Rothschild, errand boy, he is bank teller essentially. That's who he is. He doesn't understand the first thing. Then you look at his personal life, which is absolutely a PR catastrophe. French elected him twice. Well, there you go. And again, make no mistake, I really feel for French people and for Europeans, because obviously there is now the poll in France that up to 55% of the families cannot afford the Christmas gifts, presents for their children. It is sad. If I said that my heart doesn't, bleed because of that, no, I'm heartbroken for these people. I'm heartbroken for English people. There used to be great people who produced, some exquisite culture, but they also produced and supported the regimes which actually raped and, basically robbed the rest of the world. Until Russia entered into the fray since the times of Peter the Great. And so suddenly you have this situation now, who the hell those newcomers? Well, it has been now a long time, more than, 3.5 centuries since then happened. And so since then they couldn't stop, hating Russians, they hate the Russian gods. And for all my sympathy to people, because it is obviously very bad, so goes for Germans, they are leaving now, and they will be descending even more as we speak. It happens into the Weimar Republic type situation. So, and you look at this, but then again, these were the people who have been content with they love to have Russian energy and hate Russians. At least majority of them, not all, but majority. And so now, as the result, this whole thing, in historical terms, it was very short. After World War II, which is European thing, they started it. It was Europe which basically started two most deadliest world wars in human history. And reaching this pinnacle with this chaos and horror of the World War II. So these were Europeans primarily who started this. And as I already stated, if not for the United States, which gave them lease on life for 80 years, they have been living just fine, living in this idiotic delusion that they somehow, that Soviet Union for some reason wanted to invade them, United States has to protect them, and things, it's just complete garbage. And no matter how you build your narratives, if they are built on the sand, and houses on the sand do not stay. And in historical terms, 80 years is not that long of a period of time. It's really short, really. And so we have this whole thing unravels, and as the result, correct. I mean, they are desperate. They try to go to China, as Scholz was doing, as now they have the situation with Merz. And it's a complete cluster coitus, okay? Let me put it this way. They wanted it. They got it. And so nothing could be done about it. Russians do not come to save them anymore. Period. Never again the foot of Russian soldier or any blood of Russian soldier will be spilled on the territory of the Europe. Let them die. And simple as that. Russians did their part. They opened the door for essentially visa-free for all Europeans who share classic traditional values of the, Enlightenment and conservative values of the Christian civilization. And so they are going, many do go there, French, Germans, including Americans. Many Americans go there. They find their place in Russian society. They have 3 years without any pressure. They more than enough to learn this language in 3 years. And after that, they become Russian citizens, and that's it. That's what it is. And that's what happened. So, but Russians are not coming to save Europe. They wanted it. In fact, is France probably not going to exist by 2035 as the unified state. They voted for it.
Andrei, the West has, since the war in Ukraine started, the West has created a rhetoric in which they're talking about that Russia is marching toward Europe. He wants to attack Europe and capture some part of Europe. You remember Anthony Blinken, Jake Sullivan were talking about these things. And right now in Europe, they're talking about not Russia attacking, but going after a preemptive attack on Russia,
Yeah.
a hybrid preemptive attack. What does that mean? And hybrid
No,
preemptive?
nothing. It means shaking of the air by some moron. Yeah, I don't remember who did it, but yeah, I heard about it. So they better go and read Russian military doctrine. And Vladimir Putin himself stated 2 days ago, oh, if they want to, they can try, but then there will be nobody to discuss the terms of the surrender after that, because Russia can turn Europe into the parking lot in 25 minutes. And that's the thing which they did. So what do? They, as I already stated, many people have nervous breakdowns. Others completely cross into the mental disease territory. They cannot cope with this. And as a result, so Russians will not even waste any kind of the combined arm, which they can do. They can defeat combined. Euro NATO is a joke. Okay, let me put it this way: armies of the Bundeswehr, the French or UK, they are no real armies. There are some formations which are not going to last in the real war for more than 1 week or two at best. Europe is absolutely incapable of sustaining any kind of the force, no matter what they say, no matter how much money they try to actually pour into their their defense industry, which they don't understand what it is in the modern war, which always was the case. Sustainment is the foundation of the strategy. They don't understand how to manage resources. So in this case, they have to read Russia's military doctrine, especially Articles 26 and 27, which speak about what will be the response if Russia is attacked. And the response will be Russians not going to be wasting a single life of any Russian soldier. They will wipe out everything with the nukes if it comes down to the attack on Russia. And as a result, you know what's going to happen. Albeit today, with the technological development, they're basically wiping out people who would give this order in Brussels, in Berlin, or Paris. Could be done even without nuclear weapons. And we all know what kind of weapons I'm talking about. They will do, and I'm pretty sure that Parisians or Berliners or Londoners, once they wake up next day and see that MI6 and all those is gone, they slept through this, heard some rumbling, so they probably will be fine with this, because that will be the wiping out of, as Vladimir Putin stated, those people who would have the audacity and imbecility to do that. And Oreshnik, there are new weapon systems coming there, which you can do it even without nukes. You can completely wipe out military political top, which will decide to attack Russia. They will not be able to hide anywhere. There are no bunkers which can stop what Russians have. So I'm telling you that simply do not exist.
I think what the Russian president Vladimir Putin said, he said that the war in Ukraine is totally different. When we compare that, if Europe attacks us, the response is going to be totally different from what you're witnessing in Ukraine, because many people, Andrei, in the West, they don't understand, the way that Russia is, fighting Ukrainians in Ukraine. Because they don't see some sort of Iraq war, Afghanistan war. They're witnessing something different, and for them it's somehow difficult to understand, the reality of what's going on. That's why, in my opinion, the Russian president tried to, make this statement that if you attack us, it's going to be different. You're not going to see the same thing that you're witnessing in Ukraine.
Yeah. And again, it will be done very fast. Again, all those bunkers, their general parameters are known. Russia has an excellent human intel, and it has an excellent space and other intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance means, second only to the United States. And so if they think that the Russians can deliver the, Kinjal or X-101 directly into the address, just like literally into the window. Those people do not understand that. They have no clue, because for the most part, they are all kinds of people with humanities degrees. Nothing wrong with humanities degrees per se. It's just that their level of understanding of technology is iPhone maybe, and Tesla. That's about it. They believe that these are the pinnacles of the human development. They do not understand what modern weapons are. Like most of them never served a day in the armed forces. When you look attentively at the officer corps, especially European officer corps, it's a joke. We saw how the American and British planners handled 2023 counteroffensive, and then they killed 80,000 people in Kursk Oblast, which the area which is roughly of the New York proper, 159 square miles. They managed to do that. They are no professionals. They are clowns, which, as I already stated, the way they teach them in whatever the war colleges and military academies, it's not real military education. It's primarily now indoctrination. The academic level there is extremely low. And so what do you expect? We have those people who come into the politics and just remember the Telegraph, this Hamish, whatever, Breton Gordon dude 2 years ago saying, oh yeah, British and tanks are about to sweep aside those Russian recruits. I know, I was the tank commander. Dude, I mean, look at the American generals. It's embarrassing. Somebody has to tell Kellogg, Keane, all those guys, dudes, just shut up and get out because you're embarrassing United States military. But they don't understand. And I believe it was Larry. Was it Larry Wilkerson with you when he talked about his son, who is... so when he said, yeah, what do they know in the U.S. Air Force Academy? Nothing. They never flew against the real serious Air Force, let alone they have no clue what modern air defense is. They literally have no clue. And yeah, you have this type of people that just basically, excited morons who are ready to fight when they do not understand what they're going to face. While in reality, people who are really professionals, and there are still many United States military is the last public institution, so to speak, in the United States, which maintains degree of the competence. There are still people who understand things. When you have the TRADOC, training and doctrinal command people, those senior officers writing in parameters that, well, if we fight Russia conventionally, we might expect 3,600 casualties a day. So we're going to get the number of killed in Vietnam War over 10 years within 2 to 3 weeks. Is the United States capable to fight this war? No. So it's just, yeah, that's the war. And some people understand, but most don't. They still live in this, But yeah, it's crumbling because supposedly, but again, none of them read War and Peace. They don't understand about the feelings of Napoleon, beautifully described by Leo Tolstoy, Napoleon at the Borodino battle. And so, but what can I say? I mean, it's their loss.
No. Andrei, do you think that Trump is getting to the point that there is no other solution but to do something in Ukraine? Because after all, we know, as we talk, we started with this, that it seems that some people are in panic in the United States and in Europe because of the new round of negotiations. How possible is that, in your opinion? Because Vladimir Putin said that the points were, somehow divided in 4 packages. They're talking about 4 packages, different packages to talk about. I would assume that the first package would be how the United States and Russia would see each other as 2 superpowers. In the Arctic, for example, how they can cooperate with each other.
Well, yeah, Arctic could have been this gigantic cooperation project. And again, United States and Russia cannot fight each other conventionally, realistically. First, United States will be defeated, and it doesn't have forces to fight it. But in the second, United States would escalate to the nuclear threshold immediately, and then what's going to happen. So it's kind of like this the thing which has to be discussed and modus vivendi to be found between two superpowers. So, and Arctic was one of those things. Russians were offering, even before the meeting in Anchorage, they were offering the thing like, guys, you have this northern slope in Arctic, which is undeveloped, except for the land operations. They do have the, the extraction oil and gas on the land, and in the Arctic Circle. But in terms of sea, where the main, the Arctic Ocean, where the main reaches are, and it's not only oil and gas, albeit that too. United States also has access to the enormous treasure there. And they said, yeah, you have to have the icebreaker fleet. And not just icebreaker, you have to have nuclear icebreaker fleet because of the power and duration, sustainability of those operations. They said, we can do it. We can help you to build those things because Russians have unrivaled Arctic, experience in building things from liquefaction of the natural gas to, if you look at Sabeta port, a gigantic complex of everything, including which, stretches into the Arctic Ocean. And so they said, yeah, we can do it. Let's do it, So, but of course, as you might understand, Trump administration, as always, is filled with neocons and chicken hawks. And they, no, you cannot do that. What the hell are Russians? Well, okay, you don't want to do it, so don't do it. What can I say? But yeah, there are so many things. And again, I always give this example, which is actually in many respects the exhibit A of how people have to behave itself. When it became clear that NASA and Roscosmos are parting ways, there was not only negotiations, agreement between them two, that from now on, every single spaceship which Russians and Americans build will have to have the same docking system. That means what? Something happens on the orbit, each other will come and immediately help each other. This is the way it's supposed to be, And again, what can I say? But now, the time is lost, and what can I say? Trump is, as always, it's the second, basically cadence, if you wish, and his term. Same chaos, same unbelievable inability to do anything, mired in scandal. Epstein files are not going anywhere, obviously. And and of course, his bragging, his narcissism gets in the way. Russians are very patient. And they will try to overcome it, which they were trying to do this from the get-go. But who knows? Who knows? So discussion of the cooperation obviously is on the table, but again, the game, as I already stated, it's my
so
conclusion.
Complicated, Andrei.
Yeah,
it's so complicated.
It's so complicated, yes. Because as I already stated, look at Kushner and look what he represents. He doesn't represent Trump there. He is obviously the globalist capital representative there, most likely Israeli-based, I have today some guys from Israel on the conference on Israel. One of the Jews, I can send you the video. He says, oh no, they have all American Jews have to return back to Israel, and then you have to invest into guess what? Eurasia. He talks about the United States is bankrupt, Europe is done. I literally quote the guy. So they understand, So the problem is, will Russia allow the parking of this capital? I think optionally, Russians can point out, like, you can do that. You go to hell, So that could probably what's going to be happening. And again, they will never get the influence they have. There is no APAC or for that, if you say RIPAC, there will be no right back. The Russian is it's impossible. So, and it's prohibited by constitution. So whatever they try, they are trying still to get some kind of influence. They always miss the point because obviously they're not very bright people, but they need to desperately save their capitals because we know what happened already and is happening economically with the combined West. And so that's what we have. It's just the part of the game. And then other game is to obviously to prevent the World War III, like nuclear exchange, from breaking out. That means what? Dealing in Trump administration, even today, with some nut jobs chicken hawks who are imbeciles, and they're so butthurt that they, in their desperation and rage, because they are enraged, they might do some stupid, and then of course we have the issue of London, which for some reason still continues to think itself the big player, so yeah, it's kind of complicated, but Trump is not up for this job. He is not a statesman, he's showman, and he's a real estate shyster from New York, okay? So, and he's not learning, obviously. He's trying to do something, but he doesn't have the toolkit. So, in this case, Witkoff, while being obviously his envoy, he probably understands the situation better than Trump, several orders of magnitude. But he is just merely envoy. He is like Dmitriev. Dmitriev is nobody. He's just merely stated, like Putin told him, okay, you are my envoy, go do this, that, and so they are talking there. But obviously, big guns, as many people, because they're stupid, pardon my French, they don't understand. Lavrov is not going to talk with them because this is not the level. They don't understand what is the status of the Minister of the Foreign Affairs and of some envoy. Mr. Lavrov is the permanent member of the Russia Security Council. But each time something happens, like, Lavrov is not there. So he's probably, no, he's not supposed to be there. And Putin does a great, honor to Mr. Witkoff, because obviously Witkoff is the carrier, bearer of the private messages from Trump, whatever those messages are. So, and whatever they discuss, we can only speculate, but it is clear that even Washington, and judging by this desperate reaction, even Washington, finally, they understood what is happening. And what is happening, the NATO has been defeated.
Andrei, I think they still feel that they don't know that maybe they didn't update themselves that Yeltsin's Russia has died long time ago. There is
They
no
don't understand.
oligarchy in Russia deciding about the foreign policy of Russia, the strategic, agenda of Russia. And what's so amazing, Andrei, comparing Russia to the United States, you don't see these lobbies, Israeli lobby, other lobbies coming and influencing the foreign policy, the domestic policy of the government.
No, they can't.
That's why I think somehow it's so difficult for those people in the United States to understand how the system works.
Well, they don't know history of Russia. They simply don't know the history of Russia. They don't know the history of the Soviet Union. They do not understand warfare starting from the 19th century. All of it, they do not understand. Those few who do, they obviously change their outlook on the, view of the world. But the point is, it's like, again, can you imagine me getting to the 5-year-old kid and trying to explain to him the fundamentals of the differential and, differential in integration calculus? It's impossible. The kid doesn't have tool. He doesn't have the reference points. He doesn't have knowledge. And that's what it is. I am on the record. You can quote me. I wrote so much on that, including there are no Russia experts in the United States anywhere near the levels of power or in the CIA or all those organizations. They simply do not have those people who can grasp it because they're highly uncultured people. They do not understand realities. They do not know the history. What is being taught as history in the basically all those Ivy League degree mills, it's not real history, because the history of the 20th century is all under the auspices of the Soviet Union and what have happened during World War I and especially World War II. They cannot grasp it because they have to admit things which they cannot admit, because they constructed this kindergarten level narrative, which Russians, since after the war, they were like, what the hell, man? Who believes it? Well, yeah, many did, because they have been brainwashed. But now, when we have the internet now, which actually workable for more than 30 years, many people just cannot face facts. It's painful. And for some people, we can see it now across the board, including in Europe, like this guy, yeah, we're going to attack Russia with what? They are going mental, literally. And I mean it. It's not hyperbole I'm using. They are having psychiatric episodes. That means what? Getting into all kinds of I don't know, schizophrenic rage, things of this nature. They cannot, the cognitive dissonance is so severe that at some point of time, if you do not have enough will, education, culture, and control of your emotions, that you begin to break down mentally. And if you look attentively at the basically political elites, both in Washington and in Brussels, that's most of them are. They are pampered wussies, all of them. Practically, so, and they do not understand the levels of pain. They do not understand the levels of, for example, of privation, which people in Europe, I mean, especially Eastern Europe, went through. They have no clue, it's like, and then you have Hollywood, which is now dead and good riddance, which created this, wonderful picture actually in the 80s. I still call it America of 80s and early 90s. It's a wonderful country, so I miss it dearly, so it was wonderful. People were friendlier, they were not, so it's like that. But now we live at 2025 and there they are. 500 years of Europe is over. They are laughed at now.
Sometimes I feel so bad about Hungary and Slovakia to be in that, because they're asking, they're talking about Andrei by 2027, they have to block all the imports from Russia, and we know that Hungary is not in that camp.
No, they're not.
Slovakia doesn't want that, and these people are suffering because of these sort of policies,
Well, I
basically
mean, yeah.
from the United Kingdom, France, and Germany.
Well, it's I would almost wanted to say the truism, the geography rules, but not anymore, really. It's in the end, first, we have to keep in mind, NATO is de facto dead, because NATO was the United States, essentially. United States is in no position to do any kind of the serious operations. They can still try to do something in Venezuela, which gonna end up in some catastrophe of sorts. And but generally speaking, Europe is until while Viktor Orban is in power and Fico. But don't forget, even in those countries, there are all those brainwashed hoi polloi, which believe in all those, the idiotic so-called values, and they will be glad to demolish their own countries, because they will. So, Europeans are not going to have civil war. They are, even this opposition they still, lean towards all kinds of the globalist ideas. And immigration issue, while obviously critical for many countries, it's not enough to really start hunger, and economic privation will. But again, we don't know where it is going there, because obviously they also lie. European media, Europeans are so brainwashed. They believe pretty much anything which basically emanates from the media. Americans are different in this respect. And you see yourself. We sit here, speak about this without any problems. Americans have access to enormous number of the very critical alternative media. If you look attentively at Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens, who has the #1 podcast in the world. She's been listened everywhere. And so if you look attentively, and for example, I have people who evidently translate me into all kinds of languages like French, whatever they call neural network does translation. So a lot of people going, suddenly you see Danny Davis debating. It's not debating. He basically was humiliating him, Ben Hodges. And everybody in Russia already, oh my God, Danny Davis just, basically stormed the guy. So this is how it all happens, So we have this instant propagation of the information, and suddenly those narratives, again, Candace Owens, or Tucker Carlson, they have audiences which are larger than audiences of the CNN, MSNBC combined, in like a huge margin. So there you go. Europeans are not like that. There are still some, thinking segment. I know many of my friends in Europe are like that, but primarily they are. And again, it's very easy to manipulate them because for many centuries they have this. They visceral first part has Russophobia, which is a fear of Russians that Russians are come and they just whatever steal there, whatever they want to steal, and the others they just hate Russian viscerally. They have like in Germany, majority of the Germans they don't like Russians. They look at them still as subhumans, and so that's Europe, and nothing could be done about it.
Yeah, Andrei, whenever I see someone talking about Abdi Alaudinov, General Abdi Alaudinov, and Larry and I, we were talking about him, and recently there was an interview with him on Russian media, and I see the art of the policies on the part of Vladimir Putin. I'm talking about the internal policy, how someone from Chechnya, who you remember when he came to power in 2000, Chechnya was fighting the government in
Yeah.
Russia. And right now they're part of Russia. They feel Russian. They feel part of the texture of the society. They're more Russian. You remember Prigozhin and that sort of, they said that we're ready to destroy Prigozhin. And, it shows how the policy internally was successful in uniting these people. All these colorful, coming from the Muslim, Christians, all together, making Russia and feeling Russian. That is hugely important, in my opinion.
It is. Consider the fact that Ahmad actually, which it was initially a battalion, then a regiment. It's actually brigade, and actually probably could be a division at some point of time. It's a very mixed, bunch. There are a bunch of Chechen guys, Russians, Tatars. So they have this Ahmad School of the Special, operations in Grozny, near Grozny. So yeah, it's they fight. And you have to understand, when you fight next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, you become brothers. It's just, and there was a very profound thing. When Ahmad was fighting in Mariupol, and they were, of course, as usual, they were using the VSU or AFU, if you wish, AFU, that's a proper thing. They were using civilians as the human shields, and some of them have been actually subsisting on whatever they could in the cellars, basements, and all that. And one woman with the family, with a couple of children, she said, we were sitting in this, basement, horrified, obviously, shelling, and they told them that, and they were praying that the Ukrainians will not do what they usually do. They throw grenades into the basements with civilians. That's NATO force. And then she said, suddenly we hear, Allahu Akbar. She said, oh God, our guys here, they knew it, and we never, they knew Ahmad guys came in, and they were started taking them out, covering the children with their bodies. And so that's, who would ever thought, right? So, but it's a complex, it's a work in progress, obviously, but that's what it is. And Russia, it was never more unified, and not just unified. It's the whole outlook on life in Russia changed.
It's beautiful, in my opinion. It's beautiful, and everybody should be grateful of what this administration has done so far.
Yes,
it's amazing.
Well, that is why Putin has 80+% approval rating, and this is not some, their biased thing. No, this is their foreign agent, Levada Center, the guys who are financed by it. Even they say, 80+, nothing you can do about it. But yeah.
Thank you so much, Andrei, for being with us today. Great pleasure.
My pleasure. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.